Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies, and unfortunately, the Phillies dropped yesterday's game to the Atlanta Braves, which means the Braves have won the NL East again. But we've got some questions still, and the Phillies aren't dead yet. Hopefully, we'll see that again later on in October. And can Cristopher Sanchez start a playoff game for this team? Maybe. We'll also check in on the standings and see how much that 3 losses out of 4 to the Atlanta Braves hurts the Phillies in the standings. We'll discuss on today's episode of Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm Connor Thomas, your host. Thank you so much for checking us out, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that good stuff. I really appreciate all of that, and I appreciate you joining in on today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Unfortunately, it won't be a fun one as far as recapping what happened yesterday. The Philadelphia Phillies fall 4-1 to the Atlanta Braves. The only run the Philadelphia Phillies score comes on an early Bryson Stott RBI single, and the Atlanta Braves, with that victory, clinch the NL East title. They're very close to clinching the top seed in the entirety of the National League side of the bracket for the playoffs. I mean, they've been in for a bit now since the first game of the series, or I guess since the doubleheader, maybe even before that. I don't know. The Braves are a juggernaut, right? They've won the NL East for 6 straight years. Even last year, coming from behind from the Mets, that was probably their most impressive one. This one was kind of in hand for 4 months now, 5 months now, since the season really started. Once the Phillies started cold, the Mets collapsed. It was basically over in the division. So we knew this was coming. For everyone who's upset with the Philadelphia Phillies for allowing the Braves to celebrate on their field, listen, I get it. You never want to see a team raise a banner or win a division or hoist a trophy, anything like that on your home turf. You want to try and defend it. I'll tell you what, I thought the Phillies played their best game defense and pitching-wise of the series yesterday, and Cristopher Sanchez had 10 strikeouts. That was great work by him. The Phillies made some great defensive plays. Alec Boehm had a nice sliding play. Trey Turner had a great turnaround play. Bryson Stott made a great one in foul territory, sliding towards the line, or towards the fence, rather. He was already well past the foul line. I didn't think the Phillies played a bad game. I just thought the offense didn't do enough, and Spencer Strider is a strikeout monster for a reason. He's in the NL Cy Young conversation for a reason. That's Spencer Strider. He's tough to beat. You see what you have ahead of you for a National League divisional series, potentially. Of course, the Phillies still got to make it in and make it through the wild card series to get there, but the task is daunting. By the way, before we get deeper into this, I want to make sure the narrative is correct on this when it comes to the graphic the Phillies put up on the scoreboard. So at Citizens Bank Park, they put a big graphic on the giant new scoreboard out in left field. It says, "Congratulations to 2023 to the Atlanta Braves, 2023 NL East champions," or whatever. That's a normal thing. The Astros honored the Phillies when they clinched a playoff spot out in Houston last year. I mean, teams just do that across baseball. It's not a Phillies choice, really. It's more just common courtesy to go ahead and do that, and the Phillies went ahead and did that. So anyone who's upset over that, you're being upset for no reason. Like, don't get worked up over that. Get worked up over your team's performance. I mean, losing 3 of 4 to the Braves is not out of the question for even good teams in baseball. The Atlanta Braves are that good, but the Philadelphia Phillies offense needs to be better. The Philadelphia Phillies defense needs to be better. I mean, the Phillies need to put together more complete baseball games down the stretch. We're going to talk in the final segment today about the games they have left and the standings check-in and everything. If they're going to be the top wildcard seed, they're going to have to put together better baseball games. But I'll tell you what, I got to say congratulations to the Atlanta Braves, because that team fully deserves to be champions of the NL East. They're a monster of an organization. They're good year in and year out. They just always win the division. And they have one of the better lineups I can remember seeing in recent years in baseball. I don't know where their weakness is. I really don't. The Braves are in a position where their lineup is deep. Their pitching staff is solid at the top. Their bullpen is better than what you have here in Philadelphia. Like, I don't know the weakness for this Braves team. So here's what needs to happen, right? Here's how after this series, and you're going to see the Braves one more time. You got 3 games down in Atlanta coming up. But here's how, if the Phillies are going to beat the Braves, what they'd have to do. First of all, you're going to need 3 really good starts from somebody, whether it's 2 from Zach Wheeler in a 5-game series, if he throws game 1 and game 5 or something like that. Whether it's Wheeler and Nola and somebody else, like, you're going to have to find a way to get 3 exceptional starts. And when I say exceptional starts, what I mean by that is 7+ innings, 2, well, now I'll go 3 because the offense is that good for them, 3 or less earned runs. And yeah, just absolutely working. I might even go 2 or less earned runs. Like, you're going to need multiple someones to really show up and shove. You're going to need the bullpen to be nearly flawless. And you're going to need the offense to do what they did, where they got hot and gained momentum. Now, I'll tell you what, the Braves, as good as they are, and any team as good as they are, I mean, you saw it with the Astros. Now, the Astros ended up getting the series back to Houston and winning it there and everything like that when we talk about the World Series. But even the Astros, who were the world champions last year, had some trouble at points at Citizens Bank Park when the crowd really got into it and the momentum felt like it was shifting. Citizens Bank Park is a tough place to win in October. Truist Park, not as much. There's not as much of a home field advantage. So the recipe is throw Zach Wheeler or throw Aaron Nola, either one of those guys, in one of the first 2 games of the series down in Atlanta, steal a win. Or, it could even be Ranger Suarez. He's the one who got you one last year. Go ahead and take one of the wins in the first 2 games down there in Atlanta. Come up here and have your 2 big guys, Nola, Wheeler. And yes, Nola's still one of your big guys. He has a high ceiling. He's got an opportunity to shove for a little bit. Maybe it's his going away present if he ends up not with the organization. But those guys got to shove, and you can't let the series go back to Atlanta. That's the only way, and you got to find a way to you can't work around guys because the lineup's too deep. But if there's 3 guys on that team that you need to be absolutely careful with, and if there's a base open, should get nothing to hit, Acuna, Olsen, Riley, you cannot throw the ball to them. You just can't. They're too good. They're too powerful. The home run is always in play for them. And they got other guys. They got Ozuna, Arcia, Albies, Michael Harris. I mean, they're a stacked lineup there. You know how good they are. How do you beat them? Pray, I guess. But the Philadelphia Phillies offense is enough to match them. And if the Phillies bullpen and starting pitching just gets hot at the right time, who knows what could happen? Let's just go ahead and focus on getting in first, winning the wild card series that you end up with, because now you're going to have to be a wild card team. The NL East is no longer in play. The Braves have already clinched that on your home field. So maybe that's motivation for the Phillies. Maybe that's a little bit of a wake up, like, hey, all right, we're a little bit annoyed, angry, worked up over seeing the Braves celebrate on our field. Let's go smoke the St. Louis Cardinals, who the Phillies will play on Friday night, off night for them tonight. And you got to get back after it. You'll see this team again. And hopefully you'll see this team again in October, and you'll be able to take care of business there. But yeah, that's what happened yesterday. It wasn't great. It is what it is. You move on. And they're moving on to St. Louis. No game tonight. Eagles play Thursday Night Football. But the Phillies are back in action Friday night, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can listen to every pitch of the Phillies-Cardinals matchup, every pitch of the Phillies hometown radio broadcast on the SiriusXM app. Just go to the SXM app and search Phillies, and you'll be able to pull that up there. Coming up, interesting conversation about Cristopher Sanchez. Had a great start yesterday, but could he start a playoff game for this team, or is he definitely resigned to the bullpen? We'll discuss as we continue Locked On Phillies. First of all, I want to tell you about my friends over at FanDuel. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel. Well, I mean, the NFL season's already going on, so get ready for NFL Week 2 and Thursday Night Football and all of that good stuff. FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5, you're going to get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You're going to want to see every NFL game this year. Well, that's the way you do it. You get $100 off if you place a $5 bet. Now's the best time to join FanDuel. I mean, the app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. And I'll tell you this, right? This is the secret that they don't want you to know, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because I think my friends at FanDuel would want you to understand how good of a deal you're getting right now. When you get the $100 in free bets and everything, you still got to use that money to try and win, and you could still lose that money. It's free wagers, right? This $100 off NFL Sunday ticket, not a free, it's not a wager. You're getting something good with that. So it's a great time to go ahead and check out FanDuel Sportsbook. It's $100 in your pocket that you're saving on NFL Sunday tickets. So go ahead and check it out. I mean, the app's easy to use. You can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Again, Phillies off night. They'll take on the Cardinals tomorrow night, Friday night, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can listen to every pitch of the Phillies' hometown radio broadcast of that game on the SiriusXM app. Just go to the SXM app and search Phillies. We'll dive a little deeper into that game tomorrow, and we'll take a good look at that series and everything going on there. But there's a conversation to be had about Cristopher Sanchez at this moment in time. Sanchez yesterday was outstanding. He had 10 strikeouts against that Braves lineup, which that does not happen often to them. And he held them to a low run count. I mean, he was working there. If the Phillies had one of the offensive performances they had in other games, like let's say Sanchez had matched up against, I don't know, Charlie Morton. You know, the Phillies have a good look at winning that game with Sanchez's performance. Unfortunately, he drew Strider, which meant that you were going to have to basically shut the Braves out if you're going to have a chance to win, and nobody really shuts the Braves out. So I'm not too worried about Sanchez losing his start, but I saw some really, really good stuff from him. And we've seen some really, really good stuff from him this year. So here's the question. What do you trust more come playoff time? Do you trust the player's performance that season, or do you trust, the track record that player has developed or lack of one? So let's look at the options to potentially start a playoff game for the Phillies. Well, Wheeler's your number one. You know that. He's in the Cy Young conversation in the National League. Nola's your number two. He's got to be. He's got the second highest ceiling. He hasn't been good consistently, but you know when he's on, he's a Cy Young caliber pitcher. He just hasn't been on very often at all this year, and the days that he is on, he follows it up with like 2 or 3 bad performances. So I don't know what Aaron Nola is going to give you, but you got to give him the opportunity to show you. Then I don't know who's 3, but Ranger Suarez was a big part of that World Series run last year. Taijuan Walker has been pitching years and years in baseball. I mean, I've been playing MVP baseball 2017 back on that TV back there. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it kind of over my left shoulder, and doing like my own road to the show and everything, creating a player. Taijuan Walker's in that game. And he's been around a while. You exist in that game. You've been here a minute. He's a veteran. He's a big-bodied guy. He's a guy that's going to be able to eat up innings, and I think that's important come postseason, saving your bullpen and everything like that. Maybe he's a guy. Michael Lorenzen, most likely is going to go to the bullpen, but he's a guy that had a really good year. He threw a no-hitter. I mean, how do you put a guy that threw a no-hitter as a starting pitcher into the bullpen and say, no, we're not starting you? So you got all those guys. And then you got Cristopher Sanchez, who also had a really good regular season to this point, has stepped up big for the team, has really good numbers. A lot of people compare him to what Bailey Falter did last year. I think he's doing better than what Bailey Falter did last year for the Philadelphia Phillies, where Falter was pretty darn good at points. But I think Sanchez is even having a better season, or he feels like a better pitcher right now to me than 2022 Bailey Falter. But let's look at how the Phillies handled Bailey Falter. They barely used him in the postseason because the youth, the inexperience, the moment can get too big for some of these players. Now, this has to be an internal evaluation. Can Cristopher Sanchez handle the moment? Is he a Ranger Suarez, where he goes out and he's deadpan and it doesn't matter, he's not going to show any emotion and everything looks easy for him and his heart rate doesn't look like he gets above 60? Maybe. Is he a Bailey Falter, where he goes out and pitches against the Padres in the NLCS and gets lit up at Citizens Bank Park? And luckily the Phillies came back and won that game, but still, is that what you're getting? So do you trust the youth, especially with a team that is so veteran-laden? Like, can you throw a guy in Cristopher Sanchez who wasn't on your opening day roster out there? Can you find a way to get him in a ball game in a different way that's more advantageous to you than giving him the ball in a start where he could potentially sink you? Like, I look at the other guys in this rotation and I say, it's hard for me to put Sanchez over them because of the experience factor, but it's hard for me to put anyone besides Zach Wheeler over Sanchez because of the way he's pitching right now. Now, luckily, we've got a couple more weeks of games. So hopefully something will become abundantly clear and in a good way. Like maybe Nola will really break through. Maybe it's funny to even try and say that. But maybe Taijuan Walker breaks out of his bad stretch that he's been in. Ranger Suarez starts to look like the guy he was last year. And one of these guys forces the Phillies' hand and says, well, yeah, Sanchez has been good, but look how good X pitcher has been. He's going to be our third guy. So maybe that happens and makes the decision easy. As of right now, I'd still be nervous to start Cristopher Sanchez. I wouldn't start him in a wild card series. Like, he's not getting the ball from me in the wild card series if that's if that's an opportunity. But in a 5-game series against Atlanta, yeah, I think he's getting the ball. It'll probably be game 3 or 4, but yeah, I think I try and get it to him at Citizens Bank Park too, so that you have a situation where he's in front of the home crowd. But yeah, I think I'd give Cristopher Sanchez the ball. If the season ended today, you were heading into an NLDS with Atlanta, and you had to pick somebody to pitch game, let's just call it game 4, because there'll be 2 games in Atlanta and 2 games in Philly. Yeah, I think I'm giving the ball to Cristopher Sanchez. So he's getting closer and closer to that for me. And I'm a guy who hugely values veterans over young players. Like, I would consider playing Pache over Rojas just simply because he's played a couple seasons in Major League Baseball. Not a couple seasons equivalent, but he's been up for longer. Like, I don't know, man. We'll have to see how it plays out. But Sanchez is making a really good push for being part of this playoff rotation and an important part of it. And that's a good sign. Like, seeing him throw the way he did yesterday against that Braves lineup, it's not a bad thing. It just makes a decision interesting for Rob Thompson and the Philadelphia Phillies. Coming up next, we're going to do a quick check-in on the standings, the schedule remaining for the Phillies. We're coming down the home stretch. It's getting tighter and tighter by the day. So we'll discuss that as we continue. Locked on Phillies. All right, let me tell you about our friends over at Jase Medical, okay? The Jase case, it provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. So they put it all together in one case for you. All it takes to get a Jase case is to fill out a simple online form. And in some cases, you just jump on a quick call with one of their board certified. I can't talk. Try this again. You jump on a quick call with one of their board certified physicians. You can get ongoing care from their physicians on any treatment-related questions. It's doctor-created. It's doctor-recommended. And you don't want to be caught unprepared, right? You don't want to be in a situation where you say, I wish I had this, medical emergency, I wish I had that, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, everyone should be ready and able to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. Jase handles everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy, medication delivery, and ongoing consultation care. Go ahead and check it all out. I mean, you've all been in situations, every single one of us listening out there, where something happens, where it's a medical situation where you're like, okay, we need to take care of this. It pops up unexpectedly. You never expect them. And when you do, you got to be ready. And that's what Jase Medical is there for. So go ahead and check them out over there, Jase Medical, one of our newest sponsors. And you'll be prepared for the unexpected. One more time, I want to let you know, Phillies, Cardinals, Friday night, an off night tonight. I'm recording this on Thursday, but they'll play 8:15 tomorrow night, and you'll be looking at a matchup between, let's just look at the starting pitchers ready to go, Aaron Nola, and you're also seeing Zach Thompson from the Cardinals, who the Phillies have already seen this year. Yes, first pitch of that game is at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time out in St. Louis tomorrow night, and you can listen to every pitch of the Phillies hometown radio broadcast of that game on the SiriusXM app. Just go to the SXM app and search Phillies. Let's go ahead and take a quick peek into the standings before we wrap up. The NL wildcard race. The Cubs, mercifully, have continued to lose when it comes to what's going on in the National League wildcard race. The Phillies, still a game and a half up on the Cubs. The Diamondbacks also lost. You're still 3.5 up on the final wildcard spot. And you have, let's just do some quick maths here, 79 plus 67. As far as the games remaining, it'd probably be easier to count the games at this point. 146 games played out of 162. 16 games left. 3.5 game lead in the postseason push. A game and a half in the wild card push. A lot still to be figured out. Now, I'll tell you what. That was probably the hardest series of the rest of the year for the Philadelphia Phillies. 4 against the Braves, including a doubleheader. That's tough. Now you get a day off and you go to St. Louis. The Cardinals stink. Take care of business against them. Then you got to go to Atlanta and play the Braves 3 more times, and maybe you can gain some momentum in this Cardinals series, and maybe the Braves will clinch the top seed in the National League and be resting people by that point. That's why it might be kind of a good thing that the Braves have already clinched. It sucks that it was on your field, but they might rest more people the rest of the way. A lot of those guys have played basically every game, and they might get rusty by the time you potentially see them in October. But after the Braves, you get the Mets for 4, the Pirates for 2, the Mets for 2, the Pirates for 3, the Mets for 2. I mean, your last, what is that, 4, 7, 9? 9 games are a cakewalk. You can take care of business there. That would be a huge benefit, but you need to build momentum against the Cardinals. This should be 2 out of 3 tomorrow. We'll talk more about that in tomorrow's episode, but this series has got to be 2 out of 3 in favor of the Phillies, and a sweep would be awesome because you're in a spot where you have not left yourself much room for error. I do still think the Phillies are going to end up on top of the top wild card, but I'm getting a little bit more nervous every day. Well, it's never easy with the Phillies, is it, folks? But more often than not, over the past year and change, they've gotten the job done. So hold the faith. We'll see what they do in St. Louis. Off night tonight. Go enjoy the Birds. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that good stuff. I'll talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.